Well, this week, innocence projects around the world have marked International Wrongful Conviction Day, and it comes with some staggering statistics. 2,500 innocent people have been freed from prisons in the United States since 1983, after serving a combined total of more than 22,000 years. One of the most high-profile cases depicted in popular Netflix series Making a Murderer.
They wanted this information in the worst way. So Brendan thinks if I tell them what they want to hear, I'm going to go home.
Here in Australia, the most famous case has to be Lindy Chamberlain, sentenced to life in prison in 1982 for murdering her daughter Azaria.
I ran out of the tent. I said to Michael, the dingo's got the baby.
It was fresh evidence years later that set her free. In Canberra, David Eastman served 19 years for the murder of AFP Assistant Commissioner Colin Winchester. He was acquitted last year and is now seeking millions in compensation.
The jury returned a verdict of not guilty. Justice has been done.
While Gordon Wood served 3 years for the murder of his girlfriend, Caroline Byrne, at the Gap in Sydney in 1995. But he was later acquitted due to lack of evidence.
And criminal defence lawyer Ron Behlau works with the Griffith University Innocence Project, and he joins us now from the Gold Coast. Ron, great to have your company this morning. How do these wrongful convictions happen?
Well, at the end of the day, the system is all about human beings, and human beings make errors, and we have to accept that that happens. Prosecutors make errors, lawyers make errors, forensic scientists make errors, lay witnesses make errors, and unfortunately, judges make errors. So it's a human error that causes wrongful conviction.
I feel like we do hear a lot more about the wrongful convictions that happen in America. Possibly it's because they have the death penalty over there, so a wrongful conviction is I guess, so much worse. There's a lot more riding on it. How do those cases differ from the ones that happen here?
Well, at the end of the day, wrongful conviction cases don't differ, and you're exactly right. In America, there is a lot more riding on a wrongful conviction because they have death penalties in certain jurisdictions. So what we find here in Australia is injustice occurs, wrongful convictions occur, miscarriages of justice occur. America seems to be more happy to accept it. Australia is only starting to scratch the surface. And the Innocence Project that we've been working with has been advocating for at least 20 years about these injustices. So I think Australia is a little bit far behind, and maybe perhaps things like Making of a Murderer or The Staircase, those kind of series will show Australia the way and the path through to turning around some of these injustices.
And you mentioned those shows, and I think they're really integral to how we're looking at these things now. Because we've watched crime procedural dramas, but they're dramas, they're not real life. But seeing these documentaries like Making a Murder, like The Staircase that you mentioned before, podcasts like Serial, they're deep diving into these cases. They're revealing different facts that are bringing it out. Do you think that's changing the perception of the legal system and how we look at it?
Most definitely, and we in the legal fraternity are now starting to say, well, TV is coming into the courtroom. The juries are starting to be looked at. Forensic science is starting to be questioned, and we watch these shows, these CSI shows, and we believe that it's true. But the reality is both the legal profession and science is starting to say, well, wait a minute, we've got to start looking at it differently because there is miscarriages of justice happening every day, every day.
I can imagine from a police and prosecution perspective, there would be people watching this who'd be like, well, look, every criminal says they're not guilty. How do you distinguish those cases from the legitimate ones?
Well, you just work very, very hard. And at the end of the day, evidence is evidence. And that's what lawyers do. We cut through everything and look at what ultimately goes before a jury and what evidence is there. So the most important thing, in my respectful opinion, is that we have evidence retention. We need to make sure that evidence is kept so that people, at the end of the day, who go through the appeals process can access their evidence and attempt to persuade people, such as ourselves at the Innocence Project, to ensure that we have one last right of appeal. Because at the end of the day, no one else is listening. We're the only ones that are ultimately, at the end of the day, listening.
And I think it's great work what you're doing too, Ron. But I mean, I suppose you're trying to fix things, you know, that have happened in the past. But how can we change the legal system here in this country so that these mistakes don't keep happening in the future?
Well, as I said, evidence retention is the number one important factor. Second of all, second appeal rights. We need to make sure that governments understand that. And thirdly, the Court of Appeal in Victoria, the Chief Justice there said it the other day, forensic evidence is not what it seems. People seem to have this belief that science is golden, and at the end of the day, it's just not. We watch these CSIs, as you say, and we watch these shows, but the truth of the matter is it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system.
It is a tricky one to navigate. Ron, thank you so much for your time this morning. Very interesting chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.